Ben called me late that night. Hey. Did you do something with the platinum card? Huh? What are you talking about? Pretending not to notice that Ben was clearly angry, I played dumb. Hearing my response, Ben seemed even angrier. I tried to use it at the store, and they said it couldn't be used. Why is that happening? Huh? Are you saying you stole my platinum card from my wallet? You tried to use a card under my name without permission? That doesn't matter. Just make it usable right now. Ben neither confirmed nor denied that he had taken the card. Imagining his panicked state was immensely satisfying. So you took my card. That's right. You wasted money, didn't you? That's why the card was stopped. Pay off the overdue amount now. Pushing further, Ben showed signs of irritation. He seemed to think the reason the card couldn't be used was due to missed payments. This was a perfect opportunity. Are you misunderstanding something? What? What are you talking about? I don't have such a card. Over the phone, I could hear Ben's confused huh? I'm saying I don't have a platinum card. What are you talking about? His reaction was exactly as I expected, and I couldn't help but grin. I decided to tell Ben the truth. My name is Ashley. I'm a 31-year-old office worker. After graduating from a vocational school, I immediately found a job. Through continuous effort, I gradually began to receive recognition from the company. And I managed to obtain several qualifications. Now, I am a department head, supporting my colleagues. I have a husband. My husband, Ben, is 33 years old, 2 years older than me, and works at the same company. Our meeting began when Ben joined the company through mid-career recruitment. I was selected to train Ben. Worried about how he would feel being taught by someone younger, I feared he might resent it. However, Ben never showed any displeasure. Ashley, are you the head of your department? That's amazing. I've just been dedicated to my work. I respect you. I'm not good at anything. Ben praised me. I had no prestigious educational background or outstanding talent. So his words were especially pleasing. Our relationship deepened, and eventually, he asked me out. After dating for about 6 months, Ben proposed to me. I accepted Ben's proposal, and we got married. Our married life was genuinely blissful. However, as we continued our married life, Ben's sloppiness gradually became apparent. First of all, Ben was not good at tidying up. I had vaguely noticed this before we got married. But it seems he didn't even know how to use the washing machine. It was problematic that he couldn't use the washing machine when I was not around. So I once said, I'll teach you how to use it, so could you please try? Ben just chuckled. It's quicker if you do it, don't you think? But, right? Ashley, you do it better. Ultimately, Ben left most of the housework to me. Still, at that time, I thought he was somehow opening up his heart to me. If I didn't mind his sloppiness, Ben was a kind person. But 2 years after our marriage, the situation changed significantly. Ben quit his job. He hadn't mentioned anything in advance, and one day, he came home from work and suddenly said, I quit my job. You quit? What do you mean? I had a disagreement with my boss a while ago. In fact, we had been in the same department before marriage. But Ben was transferred to another department a few months after our wedding. As a result, our holidays became staggered, and we hardly saw each other at the company. However, I had never heard about Ben causing trouble in the company. Ben awkwardly explained the situation to me. It seems there had been ongoing issues between the boss and the employees in Ben's department. The boss decided the work policies unilaterally in a tyrannical manner, leading to conflicts with the employees. Ben and his colleagues had discussions with the executives. But the boss's policies were not overturned. That made me so angry. I wrote a resignation letter and quit. You quit on your own. Why didn't you talk to me before quitting? I pleaded desperately, unable to hide my panic. If he had talked to me beforehand, I might have been able to give him some advice. But he never mentioned such issues happening in his department. I didn't want to worry you unnecessarily. I'm more anxious and worried now. What are you going to do after quitting so suddenly? Ben's consideration, in fact, made me feel even more insecure. Both of us had been working, and we were maintaining our lives with our income. The condo we live in is in Ben's name, and though we're paying the rent together, it's hard to overlook the lack of income. The financial worries have only increased my anxiety. Ben seems to understand this well and said in a rushed manner, "I'll definitely look for a job. Ashley, just keep doing what you've been doing." Honestly, I struggled to believe what Ben was saying. But since Ben said he's looking for a job, he must intend to keep his promise. Okay. I'll manage until you find a job. Thank you. I'll do my best. I decided to trust him this time. In fact, I have always earned more than him. We could probably manage to live just with my income if necessary. However, at this time, we were thinking about having children. It was indeed frustrating that he quit his job just as we were considering this. But there's no use complaining about what has already happened, so I decided to accept it. Ben started looking for work and took up part-time jobs in the meantime. He spends time looking at job sites at home and helps out with the household chores to some extent. I'll definitely get our old life back soon. Ben was showing a confident attitude, but so far, there's no end in sight to his job search. He's juggling several part-time jobs, but ultimately, they don't last. And he keeps switching from one to another. I have an interview tomorrow, so I'll be going out. Is that for a part-time job? It seems like a company that pays well. Even if it's part-time, it looks like the salary could be stable. Ben seemed excited, and it appeared he hadn't noticed my dissatisfaction. He seems eager to work, but in reality, he keeps quitting and looking for new part-time jobs. I'll definitely get it right this time, don't worry. Okay. Good luck.
Yeah.
Oh, and I ate some snacks earlier, so I don't need dinner. After saying that, Ben went back to his room. I wish he had told me sooner. I swallowed the words I wanted to say and put Ben's portion of the dinner in the refrigerator. I really wish he would work as a full-time employee and earn a stable salary. But Ben just laughed it off, saying, "These things depend on fit and timing." After that day, Ben began to stumble even in interviews for part-time jobs. As a result, he started to take out his irritation on everything around him. He would make loud noises at home and sometimes click his tongue. He even threw out food if he didn't like it. Hey, don't be so irritable. I have a right to be irritated. Why do I have to go through this? Ben spoke as if he were completely a victim. Regardless of the reason. Mentioning that he left his previous job due to interpersonal issues gives a bad impression in interviews. Whether Ben understands this, I'm not sure. Maybe I can't work anymore. It's okay. Ben, you can do it. I tried to encourage him, but he snapped. What's the point if I keep failing interviews? I'm going to stop job hunting. And he went back to his room. With so many rejections, it's understandable that he might be feeling down. I couldn't blame Ben and again had to hold back what I really wanted to say. Maybe that was a mistake. One day when I got home, I found Ben had thrown his resume in the trash. I'm home. What happened? Nothing. I've decided not to go to interviews anymore. We can get by on just your income, right? I couldn't help but say, huh? It seemed that Ben had given up on job hunting and declared he would no longer go to interviews. Moreover, he said that my income alone was sufficient. He said this nonchalantly, without knowing what kind of life I was living. Since Ben's income became unstable, I had to increase my overtime and work on weekends. I'm often out late or not home on weekends, so there's no way Ben wouldn't know that. Yet, he casually says he won't work, which made me angry. So, what are you going to do? Become a full-time homemaker? What? But I'm not good at that. Ben said this and tried to leave the scene as if to dodge the issue. If he's going to be at home, I wish he would do the household chores. But it seems Ben has no intention of becoming a homemaker. It's just running away from unpleasant things. The dreams I had before marriage were shattered by Ben's actions. It was the weekend, and unusually, I was off and at home. Then the doorbell rang. Huh? Who could it be this early in the morning? Ah. It's probably my mom. Hurry up and let her in. I was taken aback by Ben's words. I hadn't heard that the mother-in-law was coming today. I had planned to relax on my rare day off. With my emotions in turmoil, I opened the front door. Ashley, it's been a while. Oh, you look quite comfortable. It's been a while. Sorry, I didn't know you were coming today. The mother-in-law looked me up and down and made a visibly displeased face. There was nothing I could do about it since I was planning to rest at home. I was still in sweatpants and had no makeup on. If Ben had told me in advance, I would have dressed more appropriately. Shortly after, Ben came and the mother-in-law entered the house contentedly. I heard you quit your job. It must have been tough. Yeah. I'm currently looking for another job. Ben returned the smile to his mother. It seemed that she completely believed his words, saying, "Oh, then Ashley has to support you." Support? We always support each other. Not like that. I mean, you should do more around the house for Ben's sake. You understand, right? Shouldn't you fulfill your role as a housewife? While glancing at me, the mother-in-law said that. I see, that's what this is about. She basically wants me to become a full-time housewife. The mother-in-law wants me to guess her meaning, without saying it outright. We function as a couple by both working. But Ashley, you went to a vocational school, right? Yes, I did. Is there a problem with that? When I responded immediately, the mother-in-law seemed startled and began to make excuses. Not really. But I think you should focus on the home so that Ben can work comfortably. I see. So, what does Ben think? I then turned the conversation to Ben. Looking him straight in the eye, Ben slightly averted his gaze and said, "Well, I understand what Mom is saying, but I want Ashley to keep working right now," he awkwardly stated. The mother-in-law appeared a bit dissatisfied with, "Is that so?" She probably didn't like that Ben was not siding with her. Thinking she could torment me, the mother-in-law cleared her throat. "But Ben, what will you do next? Have you thought about your next job?" "I'm just taking a break as a recharge period right now, but I plan to go for interviews soon. I'm also studying for a qualification." "Oh, that's ambitious of you." "That's my son." The mother-in-law's mood lifted with the topic of Ben. If one were to listen only to Ben's side of the story, they might think he could change jobs and climb the career ladder right away. I'm the only one who knows this is a blatant lie. Ben has no intention of going for interviews or look for work. Mom, don't worry. I'll find a job soon and make things easier for Ashley. Ben is admirable. Ashley, you should respond to that. There was more to say, but I didn't want to discuss it further and just laughed it off. Afterwards, the mother-in-law and Ben kept talking freely, had lunch, and finally left. Half of my precious day off was gone. Phew, she finally left. if you knew your mother was coming, you should have told me. When I exploded in anger, Ben hurriedly tried to explain, sorry, I completely forgot. Whether he truly forgot or not, he didn't seem to mean any harm by his actions. I was about to forgive him when his next words made me reconsider. My sister is also worried about my job change. And she wants to come over next time she's off. Mom might come with her, so let me know when you'll be home. Are you serious? I couldn't help but let out a low voice. It seemed not only the mother-in-law but also the sister-in-law wanted to visit. Ben, you have no intention of getting a job, right? What excuse will you give when your mother and sister come? Well, I'll manage somehow. They won't come that often. Every time you talk about work, your mother blames me for quitting. What do you think about being blamed for ruining our only source of income? I didn't hide my disgust as I spoke to the optimistic Ben. I feel bad about that. But I can't say I'm not doing job hunting. And it's hard to dodge that topic, right? Ben seemed to understand that I was being blamed. Yet, it appears he has no intention of telling the truth. What's the point of keeping up appearances to this extent? As I sighed, Ben visibly flinched. Maybe Mom and my sister are just worried about me. I'll try to talk more with them, so can we meet again? Really? Can you promise that? While Ben says this, he is not very reliable. The mother-in-law and sister-in-law are probably concerned about him. I understand that. But to be honest, I'm not fond of the mother-in-law and sister-in-law. The mother-in-law looks down on my education and continuously makes snide remarks. And she insists that Ben should work and I should become a homemaker. I wish she would speak more firmly to her own son about work. It's his fault, yet they blame me. And the mentioned sister-in-law is especially lacking in delicacy. I first met the sister-in-law a few days after the meetup. Before the wedding with the mother-in-law. While choosing a wedding dress, the sister-in-law said she wanted to help pick it out. I refused, but she was so persistent that I reluctantly let her join. Wow. What a lovely dress. The sister-in-law was excitedly scrutinizing the wedding dresses. It seemed like I was not in her consideration. However, when Ben and I started picking, she began to stare intensely at us. After looking me up and down, she snorted. You went for this type of girl. What do you mean? I thought you preferred flashier girls, but you chose a plain one. I was speechless at her unexpected words. Noticing my freeze, the sister-in-law grinned and said, I'm just not good at lying. Don't take it badly. I think of you as family now. Then she went back to looking at dresses. Ben did not reprimand his sister and just looked troubled. Hey, is your sister always like that? Unfortunately, yes. She's like that to my friends too. So I hope you don't worry too much about it. From that day, I started to think of the sister-in-law as a troublesome person. For that reason, I wanted to avoid the mother-in-law and sister-in-law as much as possible. But once it came to this, I had no choice but to meet them. I got swept up by Ben again. And 2 weeks later, the doorbell rang early in the morning. I already knew who was coming. Ben, I'm busy right now, can you get the door? Sure thing. Ben headed to the entrance, and after a while, I could hear cheerful voices. That alone made me sigh. Hi Ashley.
Yoo-hoo.
Just came to hang out. Oh, you're home today too. Hello. You guys must be doing well. Living in such a big condo, that's impressive. The sister-in-law was looking around our home without any reservation. I was nervous watching this, but Ben seemed relaxed. Right. It's all because I'm working hard. Relax and enjoy yourselves today, Mom and Sis. Oh, how dependable. Then I'll take your word for it and make myself comfortable. The mother-in-law and sister-in-law sat down in the living room and Ben followed. After finishing the chores, I also went to the living room, but was told, "Hey, bring some snacks since the family has come to visit." I was sent away. I was disappointed to see him act so grand. As if he were the man of the house and paying for everything. But the rent is not being paid by Ben. It's actually all paid by me. While I want him to keep up appearances on his own. That explanation to his mother was particularly irritating. But I decided it was no use getting angry and chose not to say anything unnecessary. When I returned to the living room with snacks. "Ashley, do you hold a managerial position? How come you work in such a good position?" I was bombarded with questions by the sister-in-law. When did the conversation turn to my job? Feeling utterly fed up inside, the sister-in-law continued. "I went to university, so I don't really understand Ashley's educational level. But don't you feel guilty earning more than Ben?" "Exactly. You don't seem to know how to make your husband look good, do you?" The mother-in-law and sister-in-law grinned at me, agreeing with each other. Ben, on the other hand, just silently listened to their conversation. It was infuriating, but what made it worse was when Ben joined in the conversation. Ashley's department doesn't require much academic ability. Plus, since she's been there longer, it's only natural she earns more. I knew Ben and his sister had graduated from university. But I didn't expect them to look down on me for graduating from a vocational school. What was more shocking was hearing Ben talk about my educational background and salary. I earn more than Ben, even though I'm supposedly less academically inclined. It's because my department's level is low. Ben and his sister laughed out loud, and I forced a smile. Was it meant to be a joke? While thinking that, I quickly escaped to the kitchen. I didn't return to the living room but eavesdropped from the kitchen. Ben and his guests continued their distasteful conversation, but it quieted down after a while. When I cautiously returned to the living room, only Ben was there. Had the mother-in-law and sister-in-law already left? No, that couldn't be. A bad feeling made me rush to my room. And there they were, inside the room. Yes, it was my room. "What are you doing?" I blurted out sharply, and the two of them turned around reflexively. Then, with a forced smile, they approached. "We were just taking a look around. Ben gave us permission." They showed no shame in saying that. I felt a strong surge of anger and disgust. "Please only look in Ben's room. Do not enter mine." "Don't say that. I was just interested because Ashley's clothes are so cute." The sister-in-law seemed reluctant to leave my room. The mother-in-law also showed no sign of leaving, and as I was struggling, "What's the problem?" "Ben came to my room." "Your mother and sister were in my room." "Then show them around." "Is there something in the room that bothers you if they see it?" I was astonished by his unbelievable response. Was he serious? They are family, but the mother-in-law and sister-in-law are still outsiders. Don't they understand that I'm uncomfortable with them entering my room? Eventually, as Ben said, the mother-in-law and sister-in-law looked around my room and left. I checked later, but there was no sign of anything missing. I was relieved for the moment, but I was about to explode with anger at Ben. I had no idea he was so controlled by his mother and sister. I hadn't noticed this at all when we first got married. "You're not working, you're not paying the rent, so why do I have to be treated like this?" "Ben, it can't be helped. This is the only way to make Mom and them feel at ease." Ben responded as if it were natural. Until now, I reluctantly accepted it, but I was so dismayed I couldn't even respond. Probably nothing I say to Ben will make a difference now. I thought I had to protect myself. One day, while tidying up Ben's room, I found a bunch of receipts. They were hidden in the closet, but I noticed them because one had slipped out. On closer inspection, the receipts were from a high-end restaurant. Another was a receipt from a nightclub. What is this? The amounts on the receipts were all over $1,000, far more than Ben could afford. A bad feeling prompted me to check our bank book. More than $6,000 had been withdrawn from our joint account. Ben. What is this about? You found it? Ben answered nonchalantly. That only amplified my anger. What were you thinking, spending so much at restaurants and nightclubs? You said this money was for rent and utilities, didn't you? But some of my earnings are still going in, right? There's none of that left. It was mostly my savings. Instead of apologizing, Ben just sighed. Stop nagging. It's already spent, so nothing can be done. Even if you ask for it back? I can't return it. Don't be so defiant. I retorted angrily, but Ben just left the house. I can't continue with such a selfish man anymore. I'm definitely going to divorce him. I decided to consult a lawyer to thoroughly discipline Ben. Having evidence was a relief. The lawyer confirmed that the evidence would work in my favor for the divorce. Ben continued to splurge, and for some reason, kept showing me the receipts. He might intend it as harassment, but for me, it's crucial evidence. I just quietly collected the receipts. Then one day, unusually, Ben spoke up. Usually, he just shows the receipts without a word. As I was contemplating this, Ben said, "We're going to Hawaii with Mom and my sister this weekend." Suddenly? Where's the money for that? When I asked, Ben glared at me. Then he sighed and sat down across from me. You should provide it since it's shared money between spouses. Help out with the family, will you? I can only give the bare minimum. I'm not working just for you. If that's your attitude, I have my plans too. Ben looked exasperated and pushed a paper in front of me. It was a divorce form, and Ben's section was already filled out. Sign this. What? You want a divorce? Just as you see. I don't need a wife who can't respect her husband's wishes. He looked triumphant, thinking that if he presented the divorce form, I would panic and give him the money. The moment I realized his scheme, my affection for Ben cooled even further. I could respond here, but I haven't gathered all the evidence yet. For now, I decided to concede. All right. I'll give you the travel money. But don't waste it. Good that you understand. Thanks. After saying that, Ben immediately went back to his room. And just like that, it was the day before Ben and his mother's trip to Hawaii. I had already given Ben some money. When I said I couldn't pay for everyone, Ben reluctantly agreed. It was surprising that he accepted my terms so easily, but it was fine if he accepted. Thinking this as I finished shopping and opened my wallet, I felt a slight unease. The card that should have been there was missing. For a moment, I thought of theft, but that thought quickly vanished. I'd been had. Ben had likely taken the card without permission. It was more accurate to say he stole it. Ben probably used my salary to pay for the trip, trying to impress his mother and sister-in-law. The thought infuriated me. He probably didn't complain earlier because he intended to use the card from the start. The platinum card could be approved based on credit history, years of employment, and stable income. It was the fruit of my efforts. Having such a card taken by Ben, who made no effort, was humiliating. It's important to honor one's parents. He should honor them as much as he likes. But if he plans to use my earnings for that, it's a different story. Above all, I couldn't forgive being spoken to harshly, shown a signed divorce form, and then having my money used. Revenge was due, but I also thought the mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who had looked down on me, deserved a lesson. The next morning, Ben was already gone. He was probably on his way to Hawaii with his family. The plane ticket was already paid for, so they might not realize until they arrived. It would be best if they realized after they landed. And as planned, there was no contact from Ben and the others. Ben called me that night. Hey. Did you do something to the platinum card? Huh? What are you talking about? Pretending not to notice Ben's obvious anger, I feigned ignorance. Hearing my reaction, Ben seemed even angrier. I tried to use it here, but they said it couldn't be used. Why is that? What? Are you saying you stole my platinum card from my wallet? You tried to use a card under my name without permission? That doesn't matter. Just make it usable right now. Ben neither confirmed nor denied that he had taken the card. Imagining his panicked state was immensely satisfying. So you took my card?
Yeah.
I did. And it's your fault, right? You must have overspent. That's why the card got blocked. Pay the overdue amount now. As I pressed further, Ben showed signs of irritation. He seemed to think the card was blocked due to missed payments. This was a perfect opportunity. I thought now was a good opportunity to make Ben face some consequences. Aren't you misunderstanding something? Ben, what? What are you talking about? I don't have that kind of card. Over the phone, Ben let out a puzzled huh? So, I don't have a platinum card. What are you talking about? Ben's reaction was just as I expected, and I couldn't help but fist pump. This is when I finally decided to tell the truth. Actually, I've been thinking about canceling the platinum card. That's why I had the card stopped yesterday. Cancel? My strategy was simple, to get the platinum card that Ben took disabled. The day before Ben and his family were to leave for Hawaii. After noticing the card missing from my wallet, I quickly called the card company to have it stopped. It was almost certain that Ben had taken it, but when I reported it as lost, they immediately disabled it. I never thought you would take it. But I have other cards, so no problem, I thought I'd just cancel it. No way. Ben let out a dry laugh. I wondered if this had served as revenge, but Ben, breathing heavily through his nose, retorted. You're just saying that. You're lying to keep me from using the card, aren't you? It stopped because you haven't paid the bill. As if I do something like that? I have other cards, so as long as they work, I'm fine. I replied calmly. Ben seemed to think he was being trapped, but unfortunately for him, it was the truth. After explaining matter-of-factly, Ben seemed to have no choice but to believe it. So, this card really doesn't work anymore? Ben, what's wrong? Let's go. Whether or not he realized Ben's plight, his mother's voice could be heard in the background. There was also the buzz of other voices nearby, likely his sister and her husband. Ben, perhaps unable to afford any reply, remained silent. Knowing the card he relied on didn't work, he must be panicking. Aren't you being called by your mom? Aren't you going? Ashley, help me. I told everyone I would pay for everything except the plane tickets. It seems Ben was indeed planning to impress using my card without permission. I knew it, but hearing it from him was still astonishing. He was also complaining about needing to pay for taxis and not being able to buy things everyone wanted, but that was not my concern. You said you would pay for everything except the plane tickets, right? Then you should take responsibility and pay for it yourself. You know I don't have any money, right? Of course, I know. You don't work seriously and always try to look good by making me pay. I snapped back immediately, and Ben, breathing heavily, became visibly angry. He might not erupt in anger in front of his family, but it was clear he was far from composed. Don't get too cocky. Remember this when I get back. That's my line. When you get back, we'll talk about the future. I'm hanging up now. Before Ben could say anything else, I quickly ended the call. Then he started texting me, demanding, "Send money now." When I ignored him, he continued, "Don't you care if my mom and others are having a hard time? You're terrible." I saved all these messages as evidence and contacted my lawyer. While Ben and his family were away, I diligently prepared for the divorce. First, I filled out my part of the divorce form that Ben had preemptively given me and submitted it to the registrar's office. It was meant as a threat by Ben before the Hawaii trip, but it turned out to be useful. Finally, my lawyer and I had a final meeting about the claim for compensation. As a result of the discussion, it was decided that Ben, his mother, and sister's behavior was sufficient to demand compensation. Ben continued to call even after they returned. I was tired from handling various procedures and really didn't feel like talking to Ben, so I ignored his calls. A few days later, through my lawyer, I called Ben, his mother, and his sister and her husband to the law office. The four of them showed up looking confused. "What's the meaning of calling us here? This is such an inconvenience." The mother-in-law complained, and the sister nodded in agreement. Her husband looked puzzled, but Ben was visibly shaken. It was time for the lawyer to explain. The lawyer discussed Ben's sudden job resignation and his decision to give up job hunting. He had flaunted wealth in front of his mother and sister by looking down on me and making derogatory remarks. Now, revealing the unauthorized use of the platinum card during the Hawaii trip, Ben visibly shrank. As more evidence was presented, all three changed color. He wasn't job hunting? But Ben said he was. He told Ashley he quit job hunting. He asked her not to tell the family because he didn't want you to know. The mother-in-law stared at Ben upon hearing the truth. Ben was so embarrassed he couldn't look anyone in the face. "What? You said you forgot your money. Are you actually not working?" The mother-in-law was visibly unable to hide her surprise, staring at Ben. It seems he managed to deceive her in Hawaii. But now, maybe she'll realize Ben's true nature. I thought so, but then the mother-in-law glared at me. "Ashley, you were deceiving me, weren't you? If you knew Ben was unemployed, you could have transferred or sent some money, couldn't you?" "What?" To my surprise, the mother-in-law still directed her anger at me. The lawyer and the sister-in-law's husband looked at her with disbelief. "You knew Ben had no money, yet you did nothing, right? Leaving Ben to struggle in Hawaii, that's the worst. Are you serious? I've helped him financially many times. He betrayed that by thrusting a divorce paper at me and stealing my card." As I argued back, the mother-in-law's face turned even redder. "And you stole the jewelry from my room, didn't you?" "Yes, I hadn't realized it at the time. But the mother-in-law had rummaged through my room and taken necklaces and rings. Not just once, but multiple times. Those cheap things? It doesn't matter." The mother-in-law became defensive and tried desperately to turn the situation around. Arguing further seemed pointless. As I was thinking about what to do next, the sister-in-law's husband raised his hand and said, "Excuse me?" He then turned to me and apologized deeply. "I had no idea that my wife intended to pay with your card. I'm sorry for the trouble she caused. Please, don't apologize. It's also my fault for stopping the card, which must have inconvenienced you." The sister-in-law's husband apologized to me, apparently unaware that his wife had targeted me. Understanding the situation, he glared at the sister-in-law and left the room without a word. "Wait. What she's saying is a lie. I thought we were getting along, but she betrayed me." The sister-in-law tried to stop her husband, but he coldly said, "Believe that now," and looked at her disdainfully. She shivered. Usually, the sister-in-law's husband is mild-mannered, but he showed another side of himself. I watched in surprise as he said, "We'll discuss our future when we get home," and then he left. The sister-in-law collapsed to her knees and started crying on the spot. I watched the scene indifferently. Suddenly, as if struck by a thought, the mother-in-law began tearing up the documents presented as evidence. After crushing them underfoot, she said, "See? Without evidence, this discussion is over," and flaunted the torn papers at us. The lawyer and I smiled kindly at her. "I think that's futile." "What? Are you just being a sore loser? Those are just copies. The originals are safely managed. Of course, this includes audio data saved on the computer." The mother-in-law had been confrontational, but her face changed color the moment she heard the lawyer's words. Her thoughtless actions had been witnessed by a third party, while she attempted to destroy evidence. "It seems you didn't think this through. I will be claiming damages from all of you." "What? Claiming damages from an old lady like me? That's the lowest. After all the abuse you've given me, do you think that excuse will work? I haven't forgotten a single day of what you've put me through. I will never forgive you." I stated this expressionlessly, and the mother-in-law looked down, tearful. It seemed she had finally calmed down. Then, Ben, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. "You're going too far. It's just a credit card, don't get so worked up about it." The credit card was just the last straw. You crossed the line, and if you had used it without permission, I was prepared to file a police report. Ben looked like a victim, but it was clear to anyone that the fault lay with him. That fact hadn't changed. Still sulking, I sighed heavily. "You should be thanking me, really. If I hadn't stopped the card, I would have charged you for the amount spent along with the damages." "Damages? You're claiming them from me too?" Ben looked incredulous, as if he hadn't expected to be charged. It seemed he finally understood the situation he was in. "Wait, Ashley. I'll change my ways and work from now on. Please don't abandon me." He finally uttered words of remorse. But it was all too late. He had had many chances to change his ways before. "It's too late. We've always worked hard together. Please." I looked at Ben, who was pleading desperately, with a cold gaze. "You're the one who brought up the divorce papers. And I have a recording of you admitting to stealing the card. I wasn't serious about the divorce papers. I just wanted you to change your mind." What a ridiculous thing to say. The divorce papers he had used as a joke had already been submitted. He had brought this upon himself. "Ashley, unfortunately, we can't understand each other. Why don't you live with your beloved mother in that house?" I wasn't sure if Ben, unemployed, could pay the rent. But given how much he looked down on me, he'd probably manage. In any case, he was now a stranger, and his life had nothing to do with me anymore. I ended the conversation there. Ben and his mother kept apologizing, but I left it to the lawyer and left the scene. Later, I formally filed for damages against Ben, his mother, and sister. In addition, Ben would now have to pay the rent by himself. I also demanded damages from his mother and sister. I had successfully recorded the mother-in-law rummaging through my room and taking items. After their second visit, installing hidden cameras proved useful. Including the compensation for the stolen items, the total amount of damages was quite substantial. For the sister-in-law, the persistent recordings I had made paid off. Since there was evidence of her denigrating my education and character, I was able to claim damages from her as well, though the amount was smaller. Ben and his family initially refused to pay and threatened to sue. But the lawyer handled it firmly. "If you go to court, you will lose. Then introduce me to a lawyer. If we leave it like this, she gets what she wants." Ben and his family showed a fighting spirit, but the lawyers said, "It would only cost you more money. It would be quicker to just pay." Thanks to that, they did not take me to court, and all three agreed to pay the damages. This allowed me to finally have a peaceful life. I thought so, but a few weeks after agreeing to the damages, Ben called me. "Ashley, won't you reconsider? I never imagined life without you would be so lonely." "No." I answered immediately, and I could hear Ben breathing heavily on the other end of the phone. "My sister is getting divorced too. They're blaming us for what happened. Can you pay the damages quickly? If you contact me directly again, I'll increase the damages." I said that and unilaterally ended the call. Ben's family being ruined was not my concern. I blocked Ben's number. Later, Ben, his mother, and sister properly paid the damages. Once, when I happened to pass near their home, it was up for sale, likely sold to pay the damages. I don't know what they're doing now, and I'm not interested. I've been promoted at work and am enjoying my days more than ever. The condo I live in alone suits me, and I feel freed from the stress of many years. Now, I can live my life without having to think about anyone else.